I do, which is awesome. And I love the fact that self-care came up a lot, even with V, but just, we're all thinking about it now, right? A lot of things have happened, particularly this year. So actually, I'm going to pull out the chat box so you can have that handy. And if we're small enough, then I will probably just do a group breakout. We might not go into breakout. So, okay, so let's get started. Of course, I always like to do a health check. I call it a health check. So you don't have to unmute, but if you could put in the chat box a number of the first question and second question. So how connected are you feeling in your relationships right now on a scale of 1 to 10? And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how anxious are you feeling today? And so it might be 5,5, 1,10, whatever that looks like. Please put in the chat box just to see and take a moment to think about it, where you're at. Cool. Oh, good. How about with anxiety? Breathing anxiety, that's good. And people ask if there's a direct correlation, like, can you be super anxious but still feel connected? I'm like, yeah, it's just about how you're feeling. Hey, maybe it's good that we're all feeling low on the anxiety scale because we had a cool live stream and we just felt connected over Discord. So super cool. So these are scaling questions. On a given moment, you might wake up 10 on the anxiety scale. Thanks for sharing that, Sasha. But then end up 4 at the end of the day. It's a good check. Yeah, we are all very similar. And it's good to check to see where you're at. So thanks for sharing. I would say that I would say I'm super feeling connected. So maybe a 9 anxiety, a 2, and I wish we could do more of it, but it's great because I enjoy feeling like we're in this small space together, even though we're all over the place. So moving on to key takeaways. I always like to share what you're really going to get out of this, things you're going to learn. V said it really well. We have to put our oxygen mask on first. And you hear that always, especially when you're traveling, right? You're with an adult or a kid's with an adult or a parent or somebody who may need assistance. Always you say to the person, the safety requirements are put your oxygen mask, then you help somebody else. So that's the concept I'm trying to grasp. That's why I called it introspective, for us to look at ourselves. I love that word because it means examining. So really looking at yourself, not critically, but just really examining, hey, what's going on with me? And I will talk about mindful anxiety, what that looks like, especially today. And then, of course, how do we build our resilience? We're already doing it. There's a lot of stuff that we're already doing to do that. But I'm going to kind of walk you through a solution-focused lens, which is my model, and I'll talk more about that. So those are the key takeaways. So you can put this in the chat box. I hope it's not too pressing of a question, but if you can answer this, that'd be great. How many of you have struggled or are struggling with your mental health? You could say yes, me, no. Think about it, not sure. Well, I was going to say, next slide. So basically all of us should raise our hands, be like, yeah. And I'm going to make this clear what this looks like. A lot of what I had to do in my work, just to share a little bit about me, was even as a licensed mental health clinician, I had to figure out a way to pivot a little bit virtually, what I'm used to. And a lot of people, I believe, misunderstand mental health. I want to make it clear that we all wake up from the very get-go in the day and think about our mental health. I'll explain what the definition is, but I'm not talking about a mental illness, but for some reason, we, when I say society, we tend to use that word to encompass everything. And that's the misconception. And that's why I want to make it very clear. It's so tangible that we can take care of our mental health daily, being proactive. So again, it's not mental illness. That does not mean you're experiencing mental illness, but definitely for sure, I guarantee you have struggled or are struggling with the mental health challenge or condition. This is the definition. It's just simply, if you break down the word mental, mind, health, health, we all know that word. It's simply really your emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And you wake up thinking about that, right? And you go to bed thinking about it. And mental health is about how well you balance the stressors that you have in life, challenges, things that we're experiencing with our resilience. It's all about the balance, right? It's not ever not important hopefully I don't know if I just did double negative, but basically it's important all the time. It's not where you put it away and go, I'm good right now, so I don't need to worry about mental health. That's actually when I see people, I wish it was not the case. I'll talk more about that. And it's not the same as mental illness. Today, I'm not going to talk at all about mental illness. Definitely I deal with it. I diagnose it. But most of the time, if I had to give it a number, maybe 85% of the time I'm dealing with mental health conditions by situations in real life or crises that you might have experienced, workplace drama, family relationships, couple relationships. Those are all triggered by what I would say mental health challenges. However, I want to be clear, that doesn't mean you're immune to a mental illness, okay? This phrase, people are like, why do you feel like you have to say this? Well, let me tell you something. You're going to hear me use the word anxiety a lot. Anxiety is also misunderstood. It's also a little that, that hesitancy to use that word when reality is it's a part of your life. It's a reaction to stress. That's simply what it is. So I say it's part of the human experience, like you're supposed to experience anxiety. And I was going to say, anybody know of an example of when anxiety is positive? Because when people hear that word, they're like, ooh, yeah, anxious, you're anxious. I like to say that because it's part of the human experience, that means it's also positive. Any examples you can put in the chat box when anxiety can be positive? Take a moment to think.
Like when you're looking forward to something, is that considered anxiety? I'm not really sure.
It depends. So give me an example. Like that could be anticipation too.
I see.
But you're on the right track. So yes, Sasha said, increase your vigilance. Ah, that's a great angle. And I'll actually talk about that shortly. The example that I was thinking technically is when it's good is when you're anxious about presenting or when you're about to perform, performance anxiety. Why would you be nervous? Because you care so much about it and you work really hard. That's the anxiety I'm talking about. Yeah, and V said that it can be a warning of danger. Ah, that's exactly true. So I will say briefly, because I don't really touch on it so much because I don't have enough time to talk about break down anxiety completely, because I could talk forever about this. Danger must to make sure it's not misunderstood, because danger can sometimes come with facts or fiction, right? When you feel in danger, all of a sudden your fight or flight reflex goes a little crazy. So when we talk about danger, we just have to make sure that we're looking at the facts. That's just part of anxiety. But yes, that is definitely yes, working on discomfort. Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about that. So yeah, I share this. It's a part of your life. But here's another hard part of anxiety that people struggle with. There's a paradox here. You will be able to deal with stress, deal with anxiety when you actually accept it. So I always tell people, anxiety is one of those things where we like to push under the rug, shove under the rug, right? And if you could think about the patterns in your life, maybe you'll notice that, hey, you know what? The things I avoid, that make me anxious, they keep coming back. Or they snowball and then they blow up. So that's what I mean. Anxiety must be addressed. So to disengage from it, basically I think of anxiety as like this thing leeching onto you. I mean, if you can feel it and you're trying to cling it off, it's like sticky and you're like, get off of me. To disengage with it completely, you have to accept and be like, okay, I see you. And I'll show you what that looks like. But there's a paradox. People don't like that paradox. But this is what I mean by facing it to manage it. Again, anxiety is part of life, so you'll experience it, but that doesn't mean you'll always feel anxious. My job is to help you manage it. So sometimes you're like, wait, am I anxious? I'm managing it. Yes, exactly. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Exactly. But yeah. So this is where I want you to accept it in all those forms. So along the lines of that, here's what it looks like. Expect it. I always tell people when people go, yeah, I don't know why I'm so anxious. I'm about to cough. People are like, why am I so anxious? Well, I'm like, well, I'd be anxious too for living through a health crisis. Because as we've all said, someone said this is unprecedented times. We're all saying that. So we've never lived through a time like this before. Excuse me. So think of the fact that if you're in the middle of a pandemic, of course you'd be anxious. So if we resist, it'll persist. The concept of when you shove something under the rug, it'll keep coming back. Trust me, it'll just keep growing. Shove it under the rug, and maybe 5 years later, it comes back in a different form. And then V said it, sorry, I don't know, I'm choking on my own saliva. V said that the feeling of trying to be uncomfortable or discomfort. Who wants to feel uncomfortable? I don't. But that's how anxiety feels. So if you expect it, depending on the situation you're at, be willing to feel it. And guess what happens? You're less uncertain of it. You're less scared when you experience that feeling. And I tell people to ride the wave. Imagine this, well, you're in LA. Some of you guys are in LA, so you probably see the beach a lot more than some of us, but you're at the beach. This is a great vision of like how you watch the waves and it's like calming. And then you go in the water, and isn't it fun to ride the waves, especially when you're little and you're like, well, this is fun. Or if you've ever surfed or boogie board, in order to not get dunked, right, and get the wave to topple you over on a surfboard or boogie board, you have to ride that wave. But the wave somewhat controls you, right? But you're in control, but yet you have to follow the wave. Imagine the wave being anxiety. So you're going along with the wave and you're like, oh, I see it. Ooh, it looks big. All right, let me follow you a little bit because I got to stay on my board so I don't fall off and get dunked under, which doesn't feel good. And then let it ride me to shore, and you see the shore and you're feeling good. So what I'm saying is that uncomfortability of like riding the wave in the water, you know that feeling. That's what I mean. It's not fully comfortable, but it's not terrible. And then one thing anxiety does, it likes to say to us, hey, look at everything you can't control, which is pretty much everything. But there's so much you can control. So I say to people, when you want to manage your stress and your anxiety, look at what you can do. Look at what is in your control. A classic example would be, we do not know what it's going to look like in a month. It's definitely turned some travel plans upside down, seeing family and friends. However, we know that we can control, as in, well, I know that I won't travel. Or an example is, I know that when I wear a mask, I feel safer. I mean, I'm just giving examples of what you can control, and there's quite a bit. So that's just an example of what it means by tolerating. That word is meaning you feel it, doesn't feel good, but you can get that. I'm trying to get you not to be scared of your own emotions, which are normal. One of the things, the biggest thing that I'm seeing in this time frame that I'm helping you understand is grief. We've lost a lot. People associate grief with loss of loved ones, but clearly in this time of COVID, yes, there's been a loss of loved ones even before COVID, but everything has been shifted. You've lost maybe your normal workplace as you know it. You've lost travel. You've lost time with family in person. And that is okay to understand. So that's why I say claim it and be like, okay, I'm going through these things. So the stages of grief, done by a famous Swiss American psychiatrist years ago. Everyone's heard about the 5 stages of grief. Those are the most common. But in recent times, shock and testing were added. And I agree with them. And so I like the modified version of like when you first hear about it, like, I don't know about you, but when I first heard about COVID, even in China, I was like, wow, ooh, gosh, that's crazy. You still have that shock. And then when it came here, you're still a little bit like, what? Are we really being quarantined at home? The thing about our emotions, and especially grief, because I wish I could say to people who see me, especially because I have a trauma background, and they're like, Jeanie, when am I going to feel better? I wish I had an answer. Because that's just not how emotions work. I can help you manage that grief or feel better at times and use the skills that you'll learn shortly. But our emotions and grief is a cyclical process. It's not linear. I would love to say, by the way, you're going to go through shock, then denial, then anger, then bargaining, and then by 10 weeks time, you'll be in acceptance and good to go. That's not how it works. And in fact, some people could have started off in acceptance and been like, yeah, cool, this is fine. I love staying at home, cool. But then all of a sudden they find themselves in denial or shock or all of a sudden bargaining, going, okay, I've been social distancing for 3 months. So what I'm going to do now is I think I'm going to go on this vacation and visit this friend. Again, nothing wrong with that decision-making. It's just ways of seeking out of what's going on. And again, good or bad, it's just what's happening, and that's fine. And then of course there's that sadness, the social isolation. Is this really happening? I can't see people. I don't like being on Zoom all the time, things like that. And then you test things too. I actually like the testing. People are like, let's see if this works. If I can visit you, but we're going to be 6 feet apart doing this. And I've seen that. And that's okay. But again, all part of what you're dealing with. I have seen people in acceptance and then 2 weeks later go back to denial and anger and shock. So that's what's hard. But once you recognize it, it's good to not be fearful of feeling that grief. So I'm saying to you, claim it. And so one of the things I want to say is when you claim that grief, just know that, yeah, this is how I'm feeling. I'm actually really mad. I don't know about you, but this is actually one of the questions, but I want to say this before we go on to the group breakout. Everything I'm sharing about, anxiety is, Brene Brown says it a little bit more dramatically. She goes, it's extremely contagious. I took out the extremely, and I know, and I agree with her. And I will say that COVID is contagious, but I tend to say, you know what's more contagious? Our anxiety. The anxiety surrounding what's going on, far more contagious. And that actually makes things a little worse. But I want to say, just as anxiety is contagious, so is calm. We can definitely spread calm. That's what I hope to do, right? We have to work at it. It doesn't come so easily. But how do you spread calm? So this isn't a breakout, but I'd love to have a group breakout. And maybe it takes time for you to think about it. Maybe you didn't really think about grief, or maybe you have. But where are you at today? Like at this moment, think about, let's go back to the stages. Where do you feel like you've kind of gone through already and trying to struggle through, or maybe you're at a good place right now? And then what are you grieving? Because I can think of lots of things off my list that I struggle with. So how about you guys? Anybody want to share? Think about the stages. I'll pull up the questions. Where are you at today, and what are you grieving maybe? Oh no, your birthday weekend. I didn't know when was your birthday? Did I miss it? Um, okay. When was it? It's this coming Monday. Oh, gotcha. Wow, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, we definitely will celebrate differently. Um, has anybody felt like they've experienced one of the stronger emotions of grief, of either anger or some sadness? Those are the two that I tend to see depending on what you're experiencing. Anger could also be, by the way, frustration, right? It doesn't have to be full on anger. I'll share mine briefly that I had to, and I'm still grieving actually, kids' milestones, being a parent. Kevin, maybe you're hearing that a lot with fellow parents that you work with, that you just have this image of how your son's going to graduate from high school and super excited. And of course, COVID turns out upside down. He still graduated, which is awesome. But it's definitely something I'm grieving. Sasha, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I totally agree. I'd love to hear if you want to talk more about the testing part of it, because again, that's the newer part of things. Yeah, you're definitely, again, you're not going to experience one whole emotion at once too. You go back and forth.
Yeah, I appreciate seeing all the steps broken down, because as you're going through it, like even as you're moving through all the steps, you're kind of going through it all at once, and maybe not in a, I don't know, easily discernible order. I don't know if the steps are meant to go in a specific order, or if people kind of jump around. And but yeah, I mean, seeking realistic solutions, that's, something that puts the onus back on yourself and gives you back some power in the situation. But I mean, I don't know, I feel like I keep going back and forth between those three, because I don't even want to think of it as like, depressed or like pessimistic. It's just sort of like coming to a new reality, and maybe that isn't as shiny and happy as people want it to be, but like it is what it is. And I feel like I have to be a little more upbeat when I talk to my coworkers about this, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. You're right. So these were written in a form of, I think, according to research, to clarify, I guess they figure that people could go in these orders, but in my experience of working with people, no, I don't see that in the order. Some people I actually believe have not been experiencing anger in some of their grief, and they skip to just sadness, you know? And so that's why I just feel like nobody can really pinpoint how you're supposed to feel. But to answer the question, yes, it's not a linear process and you can experience all of them at once. So thanks for sharing that. I guess that's a good reminder for me, because sometimes I go between back and forth of like frustrated and then feeling like, oh my gosh, bargaining. Okay, how do we figure this out? Yeah, definitely grieving. So I appreciate that sharing. Yeah. So claiming it is important in addressing some of that anxiety. That's actually a lot of what's going on in today's time. So going on to pride. I just like this word. First of all, I like acronyms. I feel like they're a good way of learning skills. And so, of course, the P, put your oxygen mask on first. I repeat this a lot because I still think a lot of people assume, and I get it, when you're taking care of others. And then what happens is when I see folks that have not looked to understand that putting their oxygen mask on, they're much more effective around them, right? Because by the way, you can easily spread anxiety just as easily as you can spread calm, right? Recognize your own resilience. I'll talk about that in a little bit. That's about being solution focused. This, by the way, is founded on a solution focused model. I just like the acronym, so I made this up, but identify solutions to focus on. So you know this, human nature focuses on the negative. We'll just look at, oh my gosh, who said this? And you know, what he's not doing, what she's not doing, and the issues and the problems of society, that's what we look at. And understandable, that's just how the human brain works. So it takes much more practice to look at identifying the things that are going well. Because the term that I want to share that I say a lot to people is what you focus on magnifies. So if you're focusing on great things, and hey, it'll grow and be like, oh my gosh, and then look at this great thing. But if you're focusing on one problem, trust me, that problem will consume you. So that's what I mean, that I'm gonna talk about putting on a solution focused lens, you know, literally, figuratively. And then D, determine what's already working. I already said that. I'll explain more what that looks like, but instead of looking at what's not working, just like looking at what you're not in control of, which is a lot, there are things you are in control, and there are things that are already working for you to help you build your resilience, help you manage your anxiety, take care of that stress. And then E, there are exceptions to the problem. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes I'll be talking to these data analysts or engineers, and they're like, no, there's no exceptions to this. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm talking more emotionally, but this can also work in the workplace. But there are times when you know you're not stressed. There are times when you're not anxious or not grieving, or the stressful emotions I'm talking about today. When are those times? And that's the question I would be asking you. So that's what I mean by looking for exceptions. I'll break that down further, but this is, again, a perspective that we need to practice. And again, it gives you that strength as well. So what does being solution focused look like? Let me explain this methodology. When I was going into mental health, which I want to say this is technically my third career, so without aging myself, but yes, I identified a lot with the solution focused model rooted in family therapy, but it's a very hands-on model, very goal-driven, very future focused, understanding what's going on in the present. And it was all about coming up with solutions. For instance, if you come see me, or if an organization comes see me saying, this is what's going on, Jeanie, we need your help, then I will say, you know what? Okay, I heard the problem. Great. That's it. I won't even ask about the problem again, unless there's another issue that comes with it. I will just work on solutions. That's just an example that I'll hear about your problem once. So the question that I ask, and the question you can ask, is, wait, what do I want? What do I want to see happen? What's the result that I want to see happen? That seems like a simple question, but there's so many times people are upset about things, or trying to work on their job and innovating and doing some great stuff, and they're frustrated because when I ask that question, I hope that you'll be able to answer it. It means know what you're going for, and perhaps the frustration won't be that bad because you know where you want to be. Here's what I want to do. Okay. And the classic examples when you're in a very tough conversation, you have to kind of manage a conflict with somebody. And you're like, you know what? I'll say, hey, why do you want to talk to this person? They're like, because I'm mad. Okay, well, I go, that's not quite the goal. What's the goal? What's the result you want out of your conversation? Even asking that, people are like, oh, yeah, let me think about that. Oh, I just want them to hear me, and then maybe we won't fight anymore. That's what I need from you. That way, you know, the process of getting there isn't that bad, if that makes sense, right? Highlight your strengths. Sometimes I see this a lot. Organizations, entrepreneurs, all of us, you know what we do. We're like, okay, this is what I gotta do more of. I gotta make more money. I gotta innovate more. I gotta do my ideas. I'm not doing this. I get that. Again, human nature. But hey, look at what you're already doing. Maybe the money you've earned, or the fact that you started something in COVID, or V was saying about pausing and, you know, taking his time to pivot and not put on more work. That is a strength. Highlight those. That's to build your resilience, right? And when you do that, then what happens already? A perspective shifts when you're like, hey, wait, yeah, you know what? I'm good at this. Why am I looking at the fact that I'm not good at facilitating? Because what I'm good at is listening and engaging. I mean, things like that, right? That doesn't mean we don't work on the things we're not good at, but this is just a perspective I need you to uphold to balance your, you know, mental health and make sure you're not constantly burning yourself out. And one of the things I want to say is that we like to look for the big change. We're like, all right, I want to make my first not be in the red when I'm thinking of entrepreneurs, and great goals. But don't deny that little change can eventually lead to the big change, where depending on what you're doing, maybe it's one person calling you back if you're doing a cold call or something, and you called 100 people. And you're like, oh my gosh, I called 100 people and I only reached one. Sure, if you decide to just focus on that, yeah, one doesn't sound great. However, that one could be that big change where you're like, I reached one person, and that person was totally excited about what I'm doing, and he may potentially buy into what I'm gonna do. Wow, the very switch of that helps you manage your stress and anxiety. So that's what it means by being solution focused. By the way, you can always ask questions as I'm going along. Solution focused techniques, let's look at time, good. These are the core of what I would say are techniques that I would like you to leave with. Both are, I would say, equally important, but I'm sure you know this. You've heard of breathing, right? Deep breathing. Everybody knows about deep breathing techniques, and B would know, being an actor, you know. I want to ask you a question. What is the purpose of deep breathing? Purpose. Anybody want to answer that? There's a specific answer I am looking for. You know how when you're stressed out, people are like, okay, calm down, Leon. Take a deep breath, right? Sasha, breathe, right? Yeah, Via, you shouldn't have answered that. You got the answer right. Hence the oxygen that I'm always talking about, putting your oxygen mask on first. That too. She answered it. Sasha, okay, very innovative thinking. Yes. The purpose, of course, the end results are you will calm down. Your muscles will relax. Yes, you'll be able to think clearly. But the purpose to get to that point of thinking clearly and relaxing, muscles relaxing, is to breathe, to deep breathe effectively, because your brain is lacking oxygen when you're stressed. Think about it. So you're anxious, and the typical thing most people do, though the other one happens as well, is you hold in your breath. The best example I can give you is I'll just pretend that I'm having a conversation with Kevin, and I'm really upset with him. So I'm holding my, Kevin, you really upset me. I was really offended by something you said on that live stream. I can't even believe you said that. I mean, I don't even think you know what you're talking about. I'm really upset about it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so by the way, I just said all that. I just held in my breath the entire time. And by the way, the more you hold in your breath, as in you're escalating, you hear some mean things when people are mad. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I hate you, or, I never want to talk to you again, or things like that, because I work with conflict all the time. Bosses and saying it to their managers, whatever. You hear it all the time. And here's another thing. You see it on an email. When you're mad and you see something written down, you're like, oh, let me write that person back. Blah, 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 blah. Holding your breath, and you keep going. You're holding your breath more and then more. And then you say some stuff, and then you push send, and you're like, ooh, did I say that? That's what I mean of what that can do. Opposite effect is when you're hyperventilating. I do see that, especially when people have extreme anxiety, like that. Okay, I'm having a hard time, right? They're completely exhaling, and I'm like, okay, let's deep breathe effectively, but you have the hyperventilating. That's usually a little bit more in a crisis situation, or example would be when you actually are in like a car accident, you tend to hyperventilate, right? But either way, that's what happens when you're anxious. You're not breathing effectively. So that is why we deep breathe. This is the only thing you get, that'd be great, because this can change the course of an emotion or mainly a decision. I'll give you 2 examples, powerful examples. One person on the verge of quitting, right? I want to say he had a pretty decent corporate job, came to me clearly in distress, worked for a while, and he could not accept the concept of square breathing. I'd be like, you know what? I get it. I know you're busy, but can you just practice breathing? Because even when you're talking to me, you don't even take a breath. I'm like watching you and I'm like, okay, come. And he's just like, what's the purpose of this? I'm like, okay, how many times did I tell you this? But I want to say the one time he did it effectively, and I'll show you what it looks like shortly, is a great thing he said after he realized, wait a second, you know what, instead of Jeanie, when I started snapping at my team, because I think he had an issue with just expecting a lot, which is fine, and snapping immediately, and people did not like him. And I think he knew that. What he did one day was he did this, and he did it well, because he went, you know what happened? I literally went, you guys, I'm not doing well. I'm going to take a break. And I went, that's not like you, just from what I know. He's like, I know. People actually thought like I was going to faint, or people thought I was like verge of a mental breakdown. He goes, I actually felt calm enough that I literally forgot what I was going to say and didn't think it was important. So I'm trying to get at, that's an example. Another one is where kids all the time, or people have performance or test anxiety. I tell them to do this and practice it before answering a question or before they're about to talk. And again, remember, anxiety is normal. So you may still feel anxious, but all of a sudden your mind will go, thanks for breathing for me. I finally have some oxygen. Sasha's brain goes, okay, I'm really prepared for this presentation. I can do this. That's an example of what square breathing will do. And then turtling, I'll talk about that shortly. You'll never see turtles again the same way. This is what it looks like. There are many, many, many examples of deep breathing. I just like this one a lot because it's easy to remember. Square, breathing in, holding your breath, and breathing out. It also gives you a feeling of what it means to inhale. And I have said, people have said to me, Jeanie, why do we know how to inhale? I'm like, really, let's practice. If we were live, I would do it together. And we can still practice it. But when you inhale, I'm talking you inhale from your stomach to your chest. Like you're literally, 4 counts is longer than you think. It's like, I had to work hard to do that, to show you, right? And obviously I'm not holding my breath, but then you really understand what it means to hold your breath for 4 counts. Not inhale for, and then some people end up holding in their breath for 8 counts, and then that's not possible. That's hard to do. So hold your breath, inhale completely, hold your breath. And when you exhale, it is through your nose and mouth. You know, make that sound of, if you do the math for this exercise, it's 48 seconds. So less than 1 minute to just get some oxygen to your brain, for it to think a little better and go, oh, calm down. Oh, this is what you need to do. Get out of this situation. Don't send this email, and just even feel more in control. It's so you can do this 4 times in one sitting at your desk. I had some people crack up when I did a lot of corporate. They're like, by the way, everyone hears me in my cubicle. We're all doing square breathing. But I'm like, great. Then people just know you're breathing, right? And then you get more expert at it, by the way. Exhale doesn't sound as loud once you do it more. And then standing, you could be doing it when you're standing. I tell people you could walk and do it. Walk your dog, go in the middle of the day, wash dishes. That's when I tend to do it, because I tend to be frustrated in the kitchen sometimes. Driving. Oh, you know how much road rage we probably work out if people square breathe all the time and they're driving. So you can do it anywhere, and you can do it as many times as you want. That's usually the question I get. I will say the first time you do it, sometimes you feel dizzy, lightheaded. Then I would say to you, what? Before I answer that, anybody would know why after they do this for 48 seconds the first time, maybe they're like, ooh, why would you feel that?
Your brain's not used to breathing this much oxygen, or
yeah, just maybe
exhaling this much oxygen.
Yeah, or so maybe you've been going a little bit strong the whole day and you're like, whoa, oh my. But just think about why people meditate, or why you take, when Monica does her facilitation, you take a moment to think. That's your breathing's being more regulated. So you're like, yeah, oh, now I can answer that question. That's what I'm talking about. So we won't practice that, but that's square breathing. So I would love for you to take that away and practice it anywhere. Let me know if you have any questions about that. But again, there's a lot of deep breathing techniques. I just like this one. Turtling. This is an evidence-based mindfulness skill. It is the core of, I would say, mindfulness practice, right? A lot of what I'm talking about mindful anxiety, how to just look at things differently. Well, how do you do that? You have to self-care, put your oxygen mask off. So think of a turtle, and these are kind of the traits of a turtle, except you might not know about self-writing, but I'll explain that. Think of how a turtle moves slowly. Oh, and real quick trivia question. Anybody know why an evidence-based skill like this would be modeled after turtles? Anybody know of a fun fact about turtles?
They live a really long time.
Yeah. Do you know how long approximately? No. I think sea turtles live 100 plus years. And obviously there are turtles that live less too, obviously, right? But generally speaking, they're known to, Sasha's like funny, they're known to take very good care of themselves and each other. And I don't know, do you see a lot of turtles in LA? Or was that a dumb question?
No.
Not a lot of wild. I mean, there's a lot of desert tortoises,
Okay.
but
Okay.
they're also
Yeah.
more endangered. And then another fun fact, which actually ties to turtling as well, geometrically, the turtle shell is shaped in such a way that it never finds a balance point. So when they're on their back, they actually are able to tip themselves to being upright again without an issue.
So, and what did we talk about that? Yeah, so that's interesting. When you said, was it Sasha or somebody said a desert tortoise, right? Okay. That's one of the things right here, be adaptive. Turtles live on water, or sorry, in water and on land, right? So all these traits I want you to look at, and I'll talk about self-writing last. Let's talk about moving slowly. Living in the moment, right? What I just shared about being anxious, I wish we could predict the future. There's always this tolerance of uncertainty whenever we go, no matter what, right? We just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. That's why we say that. Well, as a turtle, think slowly instead of trying to look to it so much about when's COVID going to be done? When am I going to do this? I can't wait till this is normal. Looking that way just gets you more anxious because you can't control that. But definitely what you're doing now, you can control. That's what we always talk about, being focused on the moment. What you do now will hopefully give you that future you want. So take your time. In this world of everything, I feel like we are always fast paced. We're always trying to do more. That's fine. And some of us are doing less. But still take your time of why you do what you do is basically what I'm saying. What's the intention? Monica asking, what's today's intent? Great questions. That's what I mean. Take your time to think about, wait, why am I signed up for this? Why do I want to do this? So that's one example of a turtle. And you've seen turtles super slow. In the water, I'm not so sure, but I'm talking on land. Now, protecting, snapping, and biting. Now, I don't want you literally walking around, obviously, snapping and biting. But I do want you to confront any toxicity, like toxic relationships in your life. That'd be one example. Or toxic things that you may be doing that are just not good for you, whatever habits or things like that, right? And how you do that is to protect yourself by snapping and biting them away in a figurative sense. But there are also times where you may need to confront some conflict and literally confront somebody. A great example I'd like to give you, because I always like to give examples of what this looks like, is a toxic relationship in a family where a daughter very much loved her mother. It was a great relationship. However, whenever she saw me, she's like, oh, by the way, every time I get a phone call from my mom, I just want to like hyperventilate. I'm like, what? Why? What's going on with your mom? I love her so much, but she suffocates me. Okay. This mom, I want to say, lived 12-hour time zone. So it was just very nerve-wracking for the mom, checking on her only daughter in the US. I get that. Finally, I said, you know what? I think we need to turtle here. I think we need to protect, and you might have to do some snapping and biting to protect yourself. What does that look like? So what we came up with was, she didn't literally confront her mother and say, Mom, stop calling. But what she said was this: Mom, in a solution-focused way, focusing on solutions. Mom, okay, I want to be 100% there for you when we talk, especially when we're in a 12-hour time difference, and I'm sometimes distracted. So how about this? We have phone dates or FaceTime dates, Skype dates, where we see each other Monday and Thursday nights. Or it's Thursday, Monday night for her, and Thursday night for her. And Mom, we're going to talk for an hour to an hour and a half. I'm all yours. Like, I'm not going to be distracted. You're not going to hear me snapping at you because you're calling me at work. But the other days, just know that I'll be busy working, especially during the workday. And then afterwards, after that, I'm just going to hang out with friends, whatever, And the mom's like, what? And so the mom had some time to adjust to this. But what I'm trying to say is my client felt better. So when she would see her mom calling on the days that's not Monday, Thursday, she'd be like, oh, it's Tuesday and I just talked to her, so I'll wait till Thursday to have our phone conversation. That's what I mean by a turtling strategy. And then withdraw and reemerge. When it comes to your emotions and protecting your stress and managing it, I do say be like a turtle. And you see the turtle when you step, I don't know if you go by a turtle, it goes into its shell. I do want you to withdraw into your shell. People say, oh, come out of your shell. Yes, I understand what they're saying, but emotionally speaking, to recharge, you do need to go into your shell when needed. But of course you need to reemerge, right? Turtles can't survive in their shell. They'll die without eating. So same concept, come out of your shell when you've regrouped and been like, you know what? I said no to this person, or I can't do this project, or I'm just, like V said, I'm gonna like pause and then come out when I'm ready and have more energy. So that's an example of how to manage your stress as well. And the be adaptive is exactly what I'm saying. You know that situations in life, hey, there, you don't know what we can expect. COVID has done a lot. How do we be adaptive to the life changes that we're going through? That's always uncertain, changes and uncomfortable, but be like a turtle. We can live on water, live in water if we can, and live on land when we need to. That concept of adjusting, acknowledging, hey, I'm stressed. That's actually one part of being adaptive. I'm actually stressed out. What am I going to do about it? That's a big part of it. Now, persistently self-right. I'm going to read Leon's comment in a second, but who is your support system when you're struggling? It's good to know your go-to people, because then, first of all, in a time of now when you are feeling isolated, or a lot of us when we're struggling, we think it's woe is me, I'm all by myself. When you're persistently self-righting, the best thing I can give you is a turtle. When they're flipped upside down, you know, or like sideways, they're so top heavy, they need some help. So they rely on each other, or they rely on a human being or whatever that is to put them upright. So what I want to say is, when life's turned you upside down, how do you self-right? Who turns you right back up? That's a very important concept, because I'm trying to understand and help you build your connections first. That's first one of the questions I ask when I see people. Who's your support system? So think about it now and not be like, be proactive and identify ready. I already know when I have a work crisis, I can go to this person. You know, this person's my mentor. She's really helpful, my best friend, my mom, whatever that looks like. Very important to have that. That's a mindfulness skill. Be like a turtle and know that you will have to adjust at any time. But going through all these are skills. So my big question to you is, you can put this in the chat box. How do you get through a tough day? What do you do to, basically the question is, what do you do to cope? And then I would love, you don't have to answer this, but it's for me to get you thinking, what's a turtling strategy, I just talked about turtling, that you can apply today, or that you want to apply today? I gave an example of the mom, or maybe perhaps another one I've seen is quitting a job, you know, because they just thought they're just too burned out, they need to withdraw. Okay, so Sasha said this slide, are you talking about this one? Okay, this slide has a lot of positive strategy, but when I first saw this slide, it seemed like these were negative to avoid. So do you feel like can you talk a little bit more about that? Hopefully that's clarified some things. Sasha?
Yeah, it did clarify some things. I thought turtling had a negative connotation to it, like withdrawing. That
Yeah.
seems like something to avoid, but yeah, it's a great analogy.
Good. Yes, I'd like to clarify that. Right. You definitely.
It also reveals that you know, things aren't good or bad. It's just context dependent.
Oh, I love that word. Yes, I love talking about context. You're right. Everything is in context. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So again, and you hear me use the word strategies. This is very strategic. Think like a turtle, look at a turtle. That's why I say you'll never look at a turtle the same again. You're like, oh, there you go. Nice reminder. You're going so slow. I've been moving so fast. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Right. So take a moment to think about that, but I would love to hear how you're already going through a tough day. What do you do? What are some of the things that you do? Or what are you doing?
I think the withdrawal for me has a positive connotation now that I look at it, because I know the word withdraw sounds like withdraw, but when I think of a turtle, like they're, if they're sleeping or something, they're not going to be like have their all their body parts like out there. They're going to like withdraw into their shell. And for me, there are a lot of evenings where I withdraw and I need to take a walk by myself, or I don't want to actually talk to anybody right now. Just like some decompression time before I go for dinner, or even after dinner. And that's my way to kind of like withdraw and just give myself that space.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. That actually resonates with me too, because I tend to be all over the place and need some time to get into my shell to know what I'm doing. How about how you guys get through a tough day? Anything in particular that's really helping you? Oh, piano. Oh, puppies. Why, do you have puppies? Or are you just like looking at puppies?
Currently looking at puppies. I mean, I've always wanted a dog growing up. I actually used to also foster and board dogs all the time.
Oh,
So, but with COVID, it's a little bit more challenging, as you might imagine. Yeah.
yeah. Yes. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I love hearing meditation, going on short walks. Yep. Me too. I will literally have to context switch between meetings, or I'm in Zoom fatigue by like 10 o'clock at night. Definitely. Another thing I like doing is I like having my coffee. Like, okay, so I don't know about you guys are probably not morning people, but I'm a super early morning person. So sometimes I wake up super early to just have that time by myself before it's loud and having to get to work. So I like having my coffee at the crack of dawn, like 5:30 in the morning. That's my way of, it's not even a toughiate it, but I know that I have that, I'm being proactive to get through, a heavy day. So thanks for sharing. Turtling strategy, take your time to think about it. Maybe which one most resonated with you. Some people resonate with feeling like, okay, I need a support system, or I'm not very adaptive. I struggle with that, or I tend to be too fast, going all over the place. Over-functioning is the word I would say to you. Not always good too, because that's also very anxiety-ridden.
Can I ask for the morning, when you talk about that morning, the 5:30, like,
yeah.
How much time is that? What are you actually doing like before the first call, and which category of turtling does this fall under? Is it like the self-writing, or is it moving intentionally? Like,
no, so self-writing would be more, I would say, more of a community, like the support system.
I see.
I would say mine is moving slowly and intentionally to start my day. That would be because I'm such a fast-paced person, you can't even tell. And my work can change at a given moment, where I have a crisis person. So it's my quiet time. And if I don't have that, I actually find myself, I don't want to start already harried. So I like to move slowly, and it's harder for me to do that. So I take my time in the morning.
Do you have like a morning routine that you do, and how,
Coffee for sure in the morning. I will say that if I could get up even earlier, like 4 a.m., I know that's crazy, I would, so I could actually do some of my own personal work, like someday writing a book or whatever I want to do, creative stuff. I don't have any time for it. But yeah, the routine is I get up, I actually literally get ready. Usually I work out too. So I'll have coffee and then do my long walk or run. My knee kind of feels a little weird. So I've been doing like fast walking. I love being outdoors. So I'm not an indoor kind of person. So I will go outdoors, and then I come home, I come back and get ready for the day, actually shower and all that stuff. So the coffee thing is gotta have it. And I say coffee because I only have one cup of coffee, but I enjoy my cup of coffee.
It's a ritual. Yeah.
It's my ritual.
I can speak a little bit to that as well. I've been building my own rituals the last several months, and especially the morning routine. And so for me, that same with Jeanie, like I wake up, I make my bed, I get dressed, no matter what happens that day, it doesn't matter. That's like a cornerstone. And then I don't touch my phone. So my phone has been off the entire night. It's powered off. And I don't open my phone until I'm done with my morning routine, which is it makes sure I don't tap into that attention economy, and make sure that space is actually mine versus something that is shared with someone else, which is so easy to do with our phones, right? It's a part of our extension of our body. And I actually do wake up, my natural waking hours around 4 to 5 a.m. and I go outside to watch the sun rise over the mountains every day. And that's what sets the tone of my day, right? Because it's a circadian rhythm. It's something that I like to tap into, and it's a ritual again for me, because it has different contexts of what a sun rising means to me. And then like morning movement, like mindful movement. Honestly, you don't even need that much time for your movement in the morning. Even just 10 minutes makes a big difference, as long as you're getting your breath flowing as long as it's a moderate level, which should be like, you can still talk, but towards the higher end of like, you're starting to lose your breath. So I mean, yoga is great for that. And this is very rooted in actually Ayurveda wisdom, which is a very holistic medicine that's been practiced for thousands of years in Eastern areas. But the book that I read tied that together with chronobiology, which is the cutting edge research of how our cells and our bodies are like operating based on different time scales, not just the day rhythm, but also seasonal rhythms and even like life cycle rhythms, right? It's super fascinating. So yeah, I think there's something there about how do you really, really design the way that you start your day, make such a big difference of like where your potential energy is, and then how that fluctuates through the rest of the day.
Yeah, I love that. I gotta learn more about that, but that's probably why I love the morning, because you said the circadian rhythm, it just really helps me. It's my brain, the brain power. But yeah, so turtling strategy, but then things you also want to work on. Think of the things that, you know, people tend to struggle with, the protect by stopping and biting. It could be meaning better, maybe better boundaries that you need to put in place. Saying no to things. Saying, no, I'm not going to do that. That could be a good example. So that said, Kevin's favorite word. Yes, this is, of course, empathy is such a great word, especially now. This is just how I broke it down, just therapeutically, just something to think about that came to mind as I work with a lot of people, and just things I want you to just think about. But one of the things I want to put, you can read this, but I was going to say the things I like to point out is accurate. So there is a term called accurate empathy, which means your goal there is to listen to understand the meaning. What's the person saying? Ooh, that's good to know. What are they trying to tell you? What's the context behind their words? People tend to listen and then they're going to quickly respond, and then they're not accurate in how to show that empathy because they missed the understanding. So that was just something I wanted to bring up, especially in today's time when things blew up with everything earlier on this summer. And then, of course, practice gratitude. We have to practice gratitude. And I remember first hearing that term years ago, I'd be like, what? What do you mean practice gratitude? No. In fact, I was at this, and I'll admit this, I was at this clinical networking thing. And the first thing that the facilitator asked was, hey, what are we grateful for? And I just happened to be first. You know how they go, hey, Jeanie, you go first. And I was like, and I kid you not, I literally was silent going, what am I grateful for? And it doesn't mean I'm not grateful, but I wasn't practicing gratitude. I was clearly just, you know, moving quickly like I normally do. And I actually had to take a minute to go, can you guys give me a minute and come back to me? I mean, I was a little sheepish when I thought about it, but that was just a reminder to me. Practice it. And then you know what changes? It also shifts the way you manage your anxiety to you're like, wow, I do have a lot to thankful for. Yeah, what am I focused? Why am I so angst about this? And then another I like to point out is yield. That just came to my mind, especially in the time of turmoil. Why can't we, when we're driving a car, we see that sign and we clearly let people go first? Well, because you have to, but I would love to have that attitude. Just allow people to share their other viewpoint first instead of you trying to get in there, right? And then you tend to miss the other person, or they just end up saying, oh, well, Jeanie said it all, so I'm done. I'm not going to share anything. So that yield is just having that attitude. So that's just something I want to think about when I thought about Kevin. I'm like, oh, I hope Kevin likes this slide. And I would love just to end on this note. What's made you laugh recently? What's made you laugh?
I made myself laugh last night when I was just so freaking fussy about this impending milestone birthday that I can't celebrate the way I want to, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, my wife is prepping to celebrate me in the way that she can with the resources that we have, you know, and but I know that I can be really, really cagey and fussy. And so I'm like, well, I don't want her to feel undue pressure. So I'll just survey a list of things that we can do. But then it turns into this whole, like, she's like, oh my God, is that what you want? I'll give you what you want. Oh my God. And then it turns into this dance of anxiety. And then I had to take a step back and laugh at myself. And I'm like, you know, I am not helping the situation right now. I know that you're doing your best, and my actual birthday and whatever you have planned is going to be awesome. I just wanted to let you know I wasn't going to be fussy. So I'd be down to do these other things if you wanted to, but we don't have to. And I need to just step back, step out, just do whatever, you know, just chill, you know, and everything's going to be great. And I had to laugh at myself and also laugh at the circumstances, because we're not alone. All of us are dealing with this, you know, all of us are giving up graduations and birthdays and weddings and funerals and things like that. And so just have a laugh at yourself and just be like, yeah, I'm being fussy right now, and that's okay. And I just need to stop. I need to stop being fussy and roll with it.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. It's always
Thank
fun.
you.
How about somebody else? What has made you laugh recently?
I don't know if I can think of like specific moments, but when I think about like just over the past week, it's like little, like when I'm talking to friends on the phone and it's just little moments, or like remembering little moments from the past, and all those stories makes me laugh. So it's not so much about like the what's happening now, but just like remembering, I guess, good memories. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Sasha.
Kind of to that point of being in tune with your feelings, just giving myself permission to be grumpy, but then like really being absurd with it and acting it out and like making faces. Like, I don't know, it brings some levity to a bad mood. And then, I don't know, just the word grumpy, like it really makes me laugh even when I am upset.
That is cool. I love that. Grumpy. Yeah, I mean, that's the grumpy, what's the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? Grumpy Dwarf was the funniest one. How about Leon? What's made you laugh?
Yeah, this is always a tricky one because I feel like when I hear laugh, I'm very much a like smiler and like chuckler versus like actual laugh out loud laughing. So I can't, it's been some time since I've had my last like serious hysterical laugh, which usually happens for no good reason. And it's just something that was unexpected. And actually that's what comedy is, right? It's when we see something that's unexpected. That's why the jokes are best, when it's a punchline that is like, oh, that came out of nowhere. That's why it's funny. That's why I'm reacting in this sense. And so, yeah, I would say improv comedy, all those things, those are always lovely to get into.
Yeah, I was
You never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I asked that question because another solution focused thing. We, you know, what's made you laugh? Try to find those things as well, right? You know, and I feel like it's contagious too. You know, when you smile, someone else smiles. Or when you start laughing, you're like, what are you laughing at? Ha, I'm laughing too. You know what's made me laugh recently? I don't mind sharing it. TikTok. I'm not on it, but I will watch it, and it is funny. Like some of the people on there, the parodies, and I can't help it, but some of the parodies of famous people, and you relate. So yes, that actually is sort of my go-to sometimes to make me laugh. So I'll laugh at some TikTok videos. So that is my contact information if you want to take a little snapshot of it. But thank you so much, guys. I really enjoyed sharing with you all. Hopefully that you can continue square breathing and turtling away, thinking of some strategies to help you manage your stress and be solution focused. Appreciate it. Hopefully, yeah, thanks, V. See you guys maybe in Discord.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, guys. Bye. So great getting to know you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.